Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Alain. Saturday, like to talk about books on Saturday. I have three this morning going to look at. We got this American Life, Benjamin Franklin biography. Just finished that. We're going to discuss it. We also got Book Lust and 50 Ways to a Healthy Heart. All books that I've finished recently. And we're going to talk a little bit about these today. I like to do the book shows on many Saturdays just to encourage you to read more, read for enjoyment, read for education. You know, I got a Wharton hoodie on this morning and I'm drinking out of a Penn Dad mug. You know, and I really do believe teaching, encouraging my daughter to read at such a young age is partly why she's graduating with a dual degree from Penn, business degree from Wharton and international degree from Penn's College of Arts and Sciences. Reading is important. So I share books. I hope that maybe you see something that inspires you to get and read or inspires you to read something else. And as always, I want to encourage you to read the newsletter I send out every weekend. I was actually working on articles this morning for tomorrow's newsletter. You'll go out tomorrow evening. So if you go sign up today, you'll get it. EnjoyLifeSafely.com. There's a couple free guides, good things to read. Download one or both of those. It'll get you on the newsletter list. Sign up for the newsletter. It gets you a different thing to read. There's a lot of free stuff. And then there's some courses ranging from price of a big giant coffee at Starbucks to a more expensive course because it's very complete on so much self-defense stuff to help you defend yourself if you have to. More courses being developed. Check all that out at enjoylifesafely.com. Now let's look at some books. Look at Book Lust first by Nancy Pearl. Recommended reading for every mood, moment, and reason. I did a quick speed read of this. I got this book and the second one, which I'm going to speed read here real soon. I won a contest at the library once, a reading contest, go figure, and got a basket of things with these two books included in that basket. I thought this book was okay because I guess here's the thing. I read a ton, as you know. This book shows how little I read. There's so many recommendations on so many different topics. But again, I did do a speed read of this because there were a lot of topics in here that I just have no interest in reading those books. So, she had a topic and she recommended some books and I don't have interest. And then in this book, she has nothing about martial art books, something I read a ton of, self-defense safety books, something I read a ton of, not much on health and fitness, which I read a ton of, and my favorite novelists, nothing about Tom Clancy, Barry Eisler, Lee Child, Brad Thor, the Lee Swagger books, none of those interested in this. So I thought it was okay. I mean, it shows how much books are out there, how many books are out there and different areas you can read in. A lot of them in this book, just not for me, but it could be for you. And that's why I encourage you to read what's right for you, what you enjoy, what you want to learn about. I learned that there's a whole lot of great books, at least recommended by Nancy Pearl, out there that I have no interest in, but you might. And so get out there and explore what's available and read the things that you really like to read. Next book, 50 Ways to a Healthy Heart. I enjoyed this book. And an interesting about Christiaan Barnard, the author of this book, he was the first surgeon to do a heart transplant. And it was like back in 67 or so. Yeah, 1967, he became a pioneer of modern surgery when he performed the world's first heart transplant operation. It took 5 hours and was a success. Since then, he's saved over 150 lives with heart surgery. And he was born in 1922 in South Africa. And this book was written like in the late 1990s or early 2000s, 2001. So he was a little bit older, a lot of experience when he wrote this book. And it has some very good things that you can do for heart health. and not just eating. I mean, he even talks about forgetting about the diets and certain diets, but he does talk about eating the right fat and drinking red wine and vitamins and different things. The Greek diet, which is, we know right now that a lot of the Mediterranean eating habits lead to healthier hearts and less heart attacks. But then he's a whole big part about stress and your environment, avoiding noise and smoke and stress and different things, sleeping well. He has parts on activities that you can do, including, walking and sex and things like that, are easy to incorporate into your life, but can help your heart be better. Then your attitude about laughing and not hiding grief, managing anger, being honest, having friends and relationships. So just a lot of different, 50 ways, and not just exercise and diet to help your healthy heart. And so I did enjoy this book, and there were some good pointers, some stuff, I read a lot about health and fitness. So a lot of it's like just reinforcing things I already did, but other things I said, oh, that's a good point. And it's something we don't often think about, but it can help us be more healthy and enjoy our life better. So I thought this was a pretty good little book to read, on heart health. And then the last book I finished this week, I've been reading for a while, reading it slowly because it's a big, long book, very well researched. I mean, it's 500 and some pages to read, but it's almost 600 pages total because there's just a lot of notes and stuff in the back. But, it's the biography of Ben Franklin. Obviously, I have an interest in Ben Franklin because my daughter's at Wharton and Penn, a university that Ben Franklin started. A lot of people get confused when they see the University of Pennsylvania, thinking it might be a state school. No, it's a private school. It's one of the Ivy League schools that Ben Franklin started. So it's one of the oldest schools in the country. And so it was interesting to read about Ben Franklin, because when you go to Penn, you may have seen my social media posts beside some of the Penn statues, or not, the Ben Franklin statues at Penn or around Pennsylvania, his hometown, so he was so popular there. So a lot of different things about Benjamin Franklin there. And so it was cool to read this book. Very interesting, very educated, very opinionated, and interesting to read about his life, because we've learned some things about him. One of the things that surprised me the most when you read about Ben Franklin is the lack of good family and relationships with his family. I mean, he'd headed off to France and lived in France and had his mistresses in France for years while his wife was back home. He was estranged from his son. He had illegitimate kids, which wasn't uncommon back in those days. It wasn't. And so you look at some of our founding fathers that had illegitimate kids and mistresses on the side, not the best relationships with family. It was a sign of the times, and he was no different. And so that sort of surprised me a little bit, because, well, I knew it, I didn't know it. And reading some of that about him. Now, one of the things I did like, was his stance on, he was against slavery, and he was very big into compromise when they were drafting the Constitution and stuff, because he was part of that. He was one of the oldest members that worked on that, and when they were doing that, and he was trying to bring compromise and some of that to get everything done, and that was something they couldn't compromise on. I mean, he was against slavery, and others were arguing, some of the people there were arguing that no, slavery is a given right in the Bible and different things, and they were fighting over it. And that was one thing that he couldn't get into the Constitution that he sort of wanted. And it took a while before they finally abolished slavery, and we did get rid of it. But I did like that about him. I liked a lot of the practicality that he had. A lot of things he wasn't as interested in the theory or this or that. He was more interested in the practical application. And I found that interesting. So it was a good book. And there are a lot of different biographies about Ben Franklin, including stuff he wrote himself, and just an interesting man to read about, a little bit about the American history and things that went on back then. Those are my books this week. Ben Franklin, a good biography by Walter Isaacson. There are many biographies out there, but this is one I read and enjoyed it. 50 Ways to a Healthy Heart, good book about heart health by the person who did the first heart transplant. And Book Lust, just a good book about a lot of different books that are out there and styles of books and authors and things. Some you might like, some you might not. And again, some of my favorites were not included, and some that were in here, it's like I have no desire to read, but it was still an interesting look at all the different types of reading that are out there, which go to your local library, your local bookstore, and you'll see all that reading available. I'm sure you can find something you like. So go do that. Find a book you like and read it. Read the stuff at enjoylifesafely.com first. That's short and easy to read, and it'll help you out as well. Before I go, let's say good morning to a few people. I'm going to say good morning to Jay and Vicky. They're here and said good morning. Thank you, guys. Good morning, Thad. Appreciate being here and saying good morning. Thanks for being here. Thad said Book Lust by Alain for the books you recommend. Yeah, maybe I should do that one of these days. One more project to add on to the ever-growing list. Dixon said, even though I was shown basket weaving when my sister did that in Girl Scouts, I care not a whit about it, so no book reading about that for me. I always thought Denton Cooley was the more notable heart surgeon. He did my father-in-law's quadruple bypass. And I'm sure, Dixon, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of notable heart surgeons who've made advances and stuff. I just found this interesting that, he did that first transplant back in 1967, 59 years ago. So pretty interesting. And there are a lot of notable heart surgeons that have done a lot of wonderful advances and work to save lives, that's for sure. That was the compromise. Extract themselves from the crown first, then tackle slavery afterwards. Yes, it was. And he had to give on that to get others. And, there were some that were just adamant that slavery was a God-given right from the Bible. I mean, that's what they argued. Some of them argued back then. And again, I did like that Benjamin Franklin was against that, but he couldn't get it in the Constitution. But you're right. They did what they did, and they tackled it later. And, it took a while. It took a war. The war was not just about slavery. It had other components as well, obviously, as we know, but that was a big component of the Civil War. And we finally abolished it, which would have made Ben Franklin happy that finally happened, because he believed everybody had the rights, didn't matter. So, which is the way we should think. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, your race, nationality, color, that it's what you do. It's how you behave. It's how you treat others. It's your actions. Those are what count. And that's why with Enjoy Life Safely, with your Warrior's Edge, I try to teach how to stay safe, how to enjoy life, and how to be exceptional, because those are the things that matter. I appreciate everybody that joins me. Hope you maybe got inspired to do some reading today. If not, these books, something else. Just read. Enjoyment, education. I will be back to see everybody tomorrow. So until then, make it a safe, satisfying, spectacular Saturday. And I will try to do the same here.